and welcome to the fourth episode of Black and Yellow, a TING podcast. Seems like we're going pretty strong. The first three episodes, we spoke with the founding partners of TING and understood their philosophy of growth, creative hustle, and of course, most importantly, TING. In this episode, we will talk about further expansion of the business, especially from a paid media standpoint. And to talk about this, we have invited Rajiv Sathe, who is solely responsible for setting up the entire paid media department at TING and eventually driving it. Today, in conversation with Rajiv, we will talk to him about his journey, the challenges of setting up a media division for an independent agency, pushing numbers, media plans, and strategies. And of course, client expectations in terms of ROI. Black and Yellow, a TING podcast, is hosted by me, Nadir Kanthawala. I lead the growth division at TING, and now here is my chat with Rajiv Sathe. Hi Rajiv, welcome to Black and Yellow, a TING podcast. I've heard so much about you already from the other partners that I was speaking to, Adil, Mana, and Shruti. They all spoke about you, so it kind of made sense to get you for the fourth episode. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Nadir. Glad to be here. And also excited at the same time. Also, I think this is the first podcast I'm giving out there. So yeah, I mean, it's a good experience for me. I hope I start liking it so I can actually do more of these.
Yeah, well, I think that's pressure on both of us then. Rajiv, before you came to Ting, you've clearly worked with a lot of brands, and mentioned earlier also that you were there with Times Group, there was DHL, a pretty big stationery brand, and then this whole agency life sort of came along for you, right? I mean, taking your friendship into consideration with the partners, and you suddenly decided that, okay, you know what, maybe I should do something with paid media. Why don't you tell us how that entire journey sort of happened?
Let me backtrack a bit, right? And then let me come to the point about me thinking that I'm going to do something with Ting. Um, First of all, I was a science nerd, right? I always wanted to do something in the science field. I've done my bachelor's in botany. I want to do genetic engineering. And you know how the saying goes, right? You make plans and then God laughs at them. So that's typically what happened. And for whichever reasons, I couldn't do it. And then plan B was mom telling me, why don't you do your MBA? Right? I mean, I had no idea what I was going to do. And then one thing just led to another. And as I started I'd worked at some other places like Orion and Zodiac. I started liking digital marketing, right? And then I got into times where I was actually in times of money. And that was chaotic because it was in the forex space and digital marketing and forex, where everything is changing every morning. It was just chaos, but I learned a lot. Jumped to DHL. I was a product manager there for about 4 or 5 different products, and a big aspect of it was digital marketing. When I was with Staples, I think at that point in time, now this is the part, right? I never thought that I was happy there. Adil, we used to catch up for coffee all the time. Actually, Adil and I have been friends since we were 16. He ended up calling me one day to Starbucks, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? At Ting, we're primarily a creative agency, and we're seeing a lot of this digital thing coming up where people are advertising digitally, and we don't have the expertise. We don't even know if you want to go in that direction. But can you just come over to office and give a 1 hour lecture on it?" I don't know. At that moment when we were at Starbucks, I don't know where it came from. When I think about it till today, I have no idea why I said that. I was like, hey, why don't I join Ting and start up the digital piece there, right? Adil didn't think either. He's like, yes, let's do it. And I'm like, okay. I like none of us had an idea about how to start up a piece, which was, I mean, it's a bit more different from other aspects, right? From the creative space and everything. Adil spoke to Manan the next day, and by the third day, there were emails exchanged, and it was done. And about a month later, after serving notice at the previous company, I was at Ting, and of course, nothing to do. For the first 3 days, I was helping them set up the new office, uh, and Adil came to me and he's like, hey, we're a relatively smaller agency, so you have to help around with other things also. And then he gave me a broom in my hand, and actually took a picture of it. So yeah, I mean, that's how the journey started. uh, yeah, it's been about almost 8 years, and it's been amazing.
Well, clearly Adil set you to make some very sweeping changes over there.
Yeah, yeah, he set me up.
It's interesting how it started off, because you were sort of getting into a relatively new field, and in the whole advertising parlance, you come from the client side right now. You're kind of moving back to the agency side, and you're setting up something new. Was there a plan in mind? Was there something that, okay, this is what we'll do in the first 3 months, we'll do this in the 6 months, then 1 year? Did you have that kind of plan, or it just...
Absolutely not. So it actually happened that they had a requirement that one of their clients, and I think Adil spoke about it, Smash, they had a requirement for someone managing their digital piece, right? That was the plan, that hey, we have a client, they want digital, let's start a digital vertical. So I think that was the plan that I sort of came into and fit into. And of course, that also didn't start for a couple of months. So for the first 2 months, it was just me being at Ting and understanding about how we're going to take this forward, right? Yes, I know digital marketing, but I had no knowledge about setting it up from scratch. And you're right, on the brand side, we had agencies working for the brand, right? And I was interacting with them and the internal digital team. But coming here, setting it up from scratch, and every aspect of it, right? I remember in the first couple of months, there was only one person in the team along with me, and as the requirements grew, I was writing copy, and I was meeting the clients, we were discussing proposals. It was just, honestly, I think when Adil said that you have to do a lot more than just digital and sweeping, I think there were a lot of other things that we had to actually set up in those first initial months, until we started getting about 2 or 3 clients, and then I think things became better. We got an understanding of how to sort of build this. We need to expand teams, we need to expand our services, we need to get the experience as well. And luckily for us, working with brands like Smash, and there were quite a few amazing people over there, uh, that also showed us our mistakes, right? And not in a bad way, right? It just helped us learn and grow in terms of how we keep improving. And I think that happens on a day on day basis even till today, and I don't think it's going to stop.
How did you start off? Because clearly there was no plan, right?
Yeah,
And a client came along, and Adil came along, said, "Listen, I have this client. Let's do something." But
yeah,
what did you start off with? Because back then also, again, digital was sort of on the rise. It wasn't what it is today. Obviously you had your Facebook just sort of coming in. You had Google, which was sort of getting established. And I guess more or less that was about it. And your individual websites, whatever that you could kind of get your hands onto. So what were there challenges? Okay, let's start with that. If there were challenges, what were those initial challenges? And I'm assuming there were a lot of mistakes that were made, and then you sort of came out of it and said, okay, now I know what to do.
yeah. I mean, if you're asking that question, I don't think we have time for a 3 hour podcast, right? So challenges, I mean, they're there till today, and I could write at least 3 books on it. But at that point in time, obviously, it was just being new, right? It was being inexperienced. We didn't even know what we had to charge the customer, right? We didn't know uh, how to break it down in terms of, okay, this is our cost, so this is how we didn't know anything. We I guess we just played it by ear, right? We sort of stayed true to the fact that there was a client that needed help, right? And I think Ting went above and beyond in trying to actually start up. And I'm not saying that that's the reason they started up, but at that point in time, there was that one client that had that requirement. And like you said, yes, it has evolved a lot, but at that point in time, they still had search ads and display ads, and Facebook a bit, SEO. So those were the 3 or 4 things that we ended up starting with. And between me and one person we had got on board, we were taking care of all of it, right? So whether it was content or website content or ad copies or your ad text, it was just, in fact, I was writing it. Um, and that's how we were running the ads, and we ended up getting some good results. And that's, I think, how it grew, and then one client led to another, and one reference led to another, and here we are.
So when the whole media piece started growing, and today I think for any agency, that is more or less the backbone, right? Whether you call yourself a creative agency or a tech first agency or a digital first agency, ultimately what you create needs to sort of go out from a media standpoint, as well, right? You can't just create something and just leave it, right? In television, you won't make a 30-second ad and just say, "Ha, okay, now you know what? I'll go play it in malls or something," right? But the
Yeah.
way things are today and the way the platforms are also changing, it's very difficult to reach a certain set of audiences organically, like the whole viral thing, like this has to go
Yeah.
viral, right? Doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, if I could have a buck for every time a client has asked this, that listen, this has to go viral, right? And sometimes we end up thinking that where is this switch or this magic wand that agencies have, that when a client says let's make it viral, and then that's it, we have to make it viral. No, I think how it changes, and I'm seeing this trend today also, that if there were certain things which were done 3 years ago as a trend and it was viral, and now when people see it, you can actually go through the comments and say this is so cringy, right? So it keeps changing. Your understanding of virality about what content is getting absorbed also right now is very different. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the ask that clients have, they range from a lot of spaces. They're and I think most of them are reasonable, but yes, you have these one-offs which it's difficult to contend with. But I think when there is understanding and expectation setting that's done, we I think that's one of the main things, right? Because I think when you asked for challenges, one challenge that we face is that the ask for digital marketing is done without understanding digital marketing, right? The understanding today for digital marketing or paid performance marketing is that this has a guarantee of getting me results at a particular like return on investment, right? Which is not the case, and I think that is the biggest challenge, right? If I can take maybe a minute or two just to tell you, uh, in my understanding, what is digital marketing, right? It's just that a platform has changed, a platform has evolved, and it's been evolving for thousands of years, right? I mean, if you go back, the first advertising space was in ancient Egypt, right? 3000 BC, where they used to do it on papyrus, right? And they used to write down what they wanted to advertise on that. Then it was on copper plates, and then it was the Gazette in the 16th century. It's just evolved, right? And then in the 60s, late 60s, 69, there was ARPANET, where the internet was created, and that's where the boom happened, right? The difference being that with this platform, because your entire life is recorded by social media platforms, you can just target them better. But there's no guarantee for one thing, and that's user behavior, right? That is that's why it's different, and there's a lot of transparency, and you can track a lot of metrics. Definitely a step up, and I'm sure it's never going to stop evolving, right? But it's just a platform evolution. But the challenge still is, at this point of time, is how much am I going to get, right? That tricky answer. And after so many years of experience, I still don't know how to answer that properly. But yeah, I would say that's definitely one of the challenges that we deal with day in day out.
And I think what's also happening, um, we've been on so many calls together, and I think in our collective experience, you're absolutely right that the ultimate end goal is, boss kitna milega, right? If I'm
Exactly.
putting
Yeah.
in X amount, what do I get in return? Have
Exactly.
you seen in the past couple of, sorry, not couple of, but maybe a decade or so, ever since you properly got yourself into the whole digital marketing operations of it, uh, various platforms that we've been working with, and now we've been seen introduced around us, do you see that the patience is kind of waning, right? We tell people that okay, it'll take a couple of months, we will have to first see, learn, and then kind of optimize. Today it's more like, okay, I'm going to put this much money, by tomorrow how much will I get, right? It's like spray and pray kind of an approach, which doesn't really necessarily work, right? So how do you kind of convince clients that okay, just give us a couple of months, let's settle down, see what we can do, and then from there on we can sort of optimize?
So, a couple of things to answer. You're right. So, as digital kept evolving, I think when COVID hit, right, there was just this chaos, right? Businesses were shutting down, but online businesses started to thrive, right? What happened there is, I remember I got a call from someone who sells saris in Dadar, right, in one of those shops. And he told me that, hey, listen, I have this small shop and I've been happy with it all my life, but now they've shut down the shutters. I have to make a living. मुझे website बनाना है and I want to do sales. And then when I think we told him a bit of like, okay, this is how it happened and this is how much you have to spend, I don't think he ever got back. That's a different story. What I'm trying to say is that there were so many people that got onto digital platforms, right? That created an immense amount of competition, right? We're still facing that today. To put it simply, if there were brands that we were doing a 5 or 6 or a 10 ROAS, they've come down quite a bit because the platforms that are giving, like for example, search, brand names which are costing, or terms which are costing about 3 or 4 rupees, they went up to about 50 rupees or 60 rupees for top bids. And that obviously affects ROAS because your price point for your product hasn't changed much or hasn't changed at all. So that was one in terms of the challenge, right? It has evolved post COVID as well, where the expectation in terms of the metrics also, it's not lowered, but we know it's a bit more trickier to get where we want to be, right? I think that's definitely one. And to answer the other question in terms of how do we handle this entire thing about explaining to the client that, this is how we need to go there, or this is how we're going to get there. I think at this point of time, again, like I'm saying, that expectation setting, that conversation with them to show them that, okay, if you are telling us to get here in 5 days, why is it not going to happen, right? Or if you need to get us to a particular point in 1 month, why it's not going to happen? There is a sequence of things that we need to follow. And here is what we've done with previous brands and how we started with them a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and see where they are right now, right? But it's a journey, right? And every brand needs to go through that journey. Yes, sure, there are one hit wonders which come on day one and they just sort of sell themselves. But it doesn't happen for everyone, right? It's one in 1,000 or one in 10,000. So I think once we explain that to them, right, they get an understanding about how it works and why does it take so much time, right? That there is learning, there is optimization. There are things that we need to take into account. How do we keep continuously improving their ads, their website? We need to keep an eye on the competition. So all of that keeps happening and it cannot be done in a short span of time. But there are times where we get clients who, are still impatient about it, which is fine. I mean, it's not going to be the same everywhere. I think there was this one client that started ads, and I think on the sixth day said that, hey, what's happening? Why am I not getting five ROI or whatever the number was at that point? I'm just giving arbitrary numbers here right now. And on the seventh day, they were gone, right? Um, and then we have clients that have been with us for 6 years, 6.5 years. So I think there should be some amount of patience, especially when you're coming in and getting into the digital space. Yeah.
Yeah, I since you spoke about online, I definitely want to pick your brains on the whole D2C aspect as well. But before that, I think you've raised in your conversation, you did raise a very important point that people jump straight to the ROAS, or the business side of things, right? But here is the critical part. If you're a new entity, an unknown entity in the market, and if your first um, job as a client is to get business straight up right, um, it's not going to happen, right? Because there's something called awareness, there's something called brand understanding, because it's a new brand. That becomes extremely critical. Why don't you help us, just walk us through the whole awareness aspect of things?
Yeah. So, okay, look at it this way, right? Look at the legacy brands that we have in our lives, right? Coke, right? Or Microsoft, and now Apple. Coke still advertises till today, right? In terms of awareness. I mean, I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't know what Coke is, right? But these were the brands that have built awareness over a period of time. They've never stopped, right? And awareness plays a huge role in sales, right? Not the immediate sales that you're spending money on to get conversions, but if there is so much awareness where you're always on top of a possible consumer's mind, that sale is going to come, right? Because if they're thirsty, or if they want a soft drink, Coke is always there, right? And I think that's what we try and explain to customers, that there is a funnel, right? There's a funnel of awareness which moves into consideration, post engagement, and then that goes into conversion, and then post sales, increasing the LTV. That funnel needs to be followed, because let's say that you have a great product, you come in the market, you go for sales, it'll last for some time, because you're going to be talking to a limited amount of people. You're it's not going to satisfy the overall objective of your business. It might satisfy the objective of the couple of months that you need to maybe show it to your investor that, oh, I've got some sales, let's move ahead. But keeping in mind that you have to actually you want to start a business that thrives, right? And I think even Adil was mentioning this, that 90% of new businesses fail within the first year, right? And it's not only this aspect, right? To get that one sale, your entire cycle has to be perfect, right? Right, whether it's the user experience of finding you on Google, or or another platform, coming to your website, having no user experience issues, going through your payment cycles, actually getting the sale, getting communication of the product that you bought, getting the product in time, having your customer support staff around if they have any queries. This entire cycle, right? And there are 10,000 things in between all these steps that you need to get right to get that perfect journey, right? So that that person who's actually bought your product will go and tell 10 more people, right? That, oh, I had a great experience, it's a good product. So to sort of get that from at least the digital aspect, there's also a funnel that people need to be aware of, that this, yes, I need to do awareness, I need to create that brand recall in people's mind. And conversion is something that keeps happening, right? And I, like I said, this, at least that's what we learn from the legacy brands that have been around for ages, and we all know them.
And the legacy brands, I'm assuming, would also have the SEO support, right? Because there's so much content that they would have generated, and they would also like to grow organically. Because after a point, unless and until you don't release a new product in the market from that legacy brand, you have to keep sustaining it, right? So the power of SEO also, I think, people need to understand. And SEO is something that cannot possibly happen overnight. You've got to give it at least 4 to 5 months, get the content in place, your keywords or whatever it is. What is your understanding of the power of SEO?
So I think, when you mentioned something about a video earlier, right? That I made a 30-minute video or a 30-second video. Now, what do I do with it, right? That's the exact same thing with a website. You made a website. Now, what do you do with it? How do you get people onto your website? So, of course, you have your paid strategy, right? Which is immediate in terms of returns. Well, I'm not talking about in terms of sales or the objective, but you run an ad. There's a chance that there are going to be people coming onto your website, right? SEO is ensuring that your website is search engine friendly, right? It doesn't only have to be Google; it can be the various search engines that you have out there, whether it's Bing or DuckDuckGo, etc. But uh, being there is extremely powerful, and I think Ting itself is a great example, right? I think now that we were just discussing this the other day, where there are quite a few leads that have come in, where how we are carrying out SEO for the Ting website itself, right? And that sustains for a longer period, right? And you are organically showing up on Google. You're not paying Google for ads. You're also with SEO carried out in a proper way, you're also understanding your entire website. You're performing uh, CRO as well, which goes hand in hand with SEO, which is conversion rate optimization on your website, understanding how you can make your website better from a UI UX perspective as well. But I think it is, I don't think there is a question whether you should do it, right? I think it's a mandate. It's like it's like having a website and not having content on it, or it's a website and not having a single creative on it, right? So why should you have a website with not having SEO being done on it? It is a mandate, right? And I think a lot of people, the difficulty though with SEO is that um, it takes time, right? It's not something that anyone has an answer for, that hey, when will Google show my search result on my website for a particular keyword? There are multiple factors. There's competition, there's a number of searches for a word. It's how well your website is doing, and of course Google loves throwing updates which just kind of shakes up everything all the time. Um, so I think that's the difficult part, because there's no fixed amount of time in terms of when your results are going to show up on a SERP, a search engine results page, and how many people you're going to end up getting. Yes, you can estimate again, you can guesstimate it again, through either historical data or understanding from the competition of how much time it's going to take, but it's not as easy as the paid part in terms of estimation.
I think there's always, since we were talking about website and having your own content, there's the other side as well, that a campaign is as good as its content and it's creative, right? Because I've heard this so many times where, and multiple places that I've been, that the media team will say, "Arey, creative was bad." The creative guys will say, "Arey, media plan theek nahi tha," right? So there has to be some form of synergy, some form of symbiosis that sort of comes through. What's your take on that?
So I think we work with a whole bunch of clients, and I agree with you. At times when we are the digital agency and we have a client that has another creative agency, that friction can take place, right? Which is why, at least from a Ting's perspective, that's one of the benefits that we offer services all throughout, right? Whether it's creative or it's studios, branding, I mean, you name it, right? Digital, which is a good thing, right? I think that's one of the main reasons that a lot of clients do go with us, also because we have pretty much all services in house. But when we're working on the other side, I think that initial meeting between the three entities to understand, see, because the digital space is all about data. So your opinion doesn't matter, neither does mine, or to a certain extent I say this, neither does it of the client, in terms of how good a creative is. You could love the creative, okay, I could hate the creative, it could be amazing, it could be crap, but it's what data that you get once you put that out on a platform is what matters, right? So let's say, and just for sake of argument, something known as a click through rate, that means out of 100 people, how many people are going to click on your creative. Let's say, for example, 5% is a good number, right? And you know that either through benchmark industry benchmarks, or through data that you've got before, in terms of back calculating in terms of what you want to get as ROAS. And if you're not hitting that, right, then the creative is not working, right? Of course you can also look at maybe the audience you've targeted, but if you're relatively sure about who you're targeting, right, and one creative is doing really well and the other isn't, it's the numbers that speak. So then it doesn't matter whether another agency has made the creative or we've made the creative, the client has made it. It's just a matter of that we all liked it, we went ahead with it, but the general public at large or our audience is not accepting it. So I think that's a good thing about digital. It's completely transparent. There is no subjectivity, right? It's completely objective, and the numbers basically speak.
This was an argument. I remember this used to happen a lot when it comes to television and when it comes to digital, right? Because television is sample size. You have something called people meter, which is there only in now maybe about a lakh and a half, max 2 lakh households all over India. And then you take that sample size and then you sort of extrapolate it for the entire country and break it down into various markets. But in digital, it's absolute, right? Because when you watch
Yeah.
Hotstar, it shows over there that 1 crore people are watching along with you, and I think that's the kind of beauty of digital. And when D2C guys came in, right, when the marketplaces suddenly started coming, everything just sort of changed, right? Because now it's straight business, right? So even if I understand there's a funnel over there as well, there's awareness, and then whether you show up on search on the marketplace search or not, and how below the fold are you there, and so on and so forth, and various other things. But that changed the game, because now a client can come to you and say, "Boss, I'm on marketplace, I want business." So how do you kind of tackle that?
So again, I'll come to this whole D2C bit in a piece, but you're absolutely right about the numbers, right? It's not an average that, okay, so many people might be watching your ad. It's down to that single number, right? 16 million or 200,001, or how many people have seen your ad, right? And that goes both ways. It's not only in terms of the result, but it's also in terms of the targeting, right? Because when we were doing TV, or you were doing a newspaper, you're doing a hoarding, you couldn't target someone on their iPhone device when they turn 18 years old and they have a friend's birthday that's coming up and they've just recently flown into another country, right? We can do that now because you're being followed. And also, let me add the interests and behavior, and you can narrow it down to someone who has the most affinity to like or buy or sort of relate with your products. So that goes both ways, and I think that obviously gave power to the fact of reaching out to people directly to their homes, right? So you have all these marketplaces now, of course, Amazon being obviously the biggest giant, and of course websites trying to have the same formula where you create where you buy their products on their website and it's straight to their homes, right? You don't have a middleman, you don't have anything. Of course, Amazon is the middleman here, but I think the game is ever changing right now with an Instamart coming in, right? I mean, how much more convenient can it sort of get with that, right? Whatever you want to order, it's done at the drop of a hat. The challenge that comes over here is the multiple number of channels that you have, right? So when you have someone who comes in, they are selling on Amazon, they are selling on their website, and they are selling on Instamart, right? And each of them has a different USP, right? So Instamart comes within 20 minutes. Amazon may give you the best deals, right? And website is that maybe you would have something in terms of a deal which you cannot give on Amazon, right? Or you might even get that personal service from a customer representative. And I think that itself is a challenge when they say that, oh, I want sales on all three. But sometimes it might be that one platform is actually cannibalizing the other because of price. That's the challenge I think we end up dealing with, but it's something that we have to live with. So we basically end up treating it as e-commerce as a space where you have platforms like Amazon and Flipkart, and the others obviously your social platforms and your Google platforms sort of trying to get sales via website. And I think it's like juggling, but yeah, I mean it's something that I think everyone has accepted it, right? And even the clients themselves, they know it. So it's I mean it is a challenge, but it's something that where everyone's happy with it, they're living with it. So it's not that big a deal.
Actually, the marketplace was, or rather is something which was sort of new in the whole digital platform game. But now so many other things are opening up, right? Like the future, I can't, even if I wanted to predict, I don't know how to predict, because you have Web 3.0 coming in, you've got metaverse, you've got NFTs, and you've got cryptos and blockchain, and so many things that are constantly happening. So Rajiv, how do you sort of keep track of these things and ensure that you have the right partnerships with the people to be able to then cater to the clients that we sort of get on board? What do you see, the future of digital marketing?
So I think one, it's a completely dynamic space, like I mentioned. But to be in the space as an agency, I think you have to be malleable, you have to be adaptable. And like you said, right? I mean, we were doing Facebook and Meta and Instagram and Google first, right? And it's not like we were doing Amazon ads at that time or e-commerce ads at that time. But when it came out a couple of years later, it is something that we had to learn, we had to pick up. And of course, you have the right people that you get in who may have expertise with it, or also learn and get to a point where they're experts on the subject. And it is going to keep evolving, right? So today, when let's say that dream comes true, where Meta is a place where you put on your VR glasses and you're in this virtual world where you can actually buy products and you can see them in virtual reality, right, or in AR. um, Again, the platform is just changing, right? The basic principles stay the same, right? It's about us adapting and learning in terms of how to use that platform and how to leverage it to get the same result that companies have always wanted for years, right? And of course, there might be a lot of things that may concern us, they may not concern us, we don't know. It is something that we have to constantly keep an eye out for, right? So for example, Google Analytics is now changing to G4. Not now, it's been for a while, but it's changing. There's a whole, the entire system of analytics is different, but we have to adapt, we have to learn, right? The same way if, and now I think Facebook, the person that we're in touch with from Facebook is telling us how AR ads are the new thing. I mean, till now I haven't seen any AR ads from any brands, But she's saying that very soon it's going to be the main thing that everyone's going to be doing. So, right. So we're trying to like sort of you know get a foray into that space as well. And as things keep sort of coming up, I think it's good for us to be not only well informed but also adapt to sort of get that into our culture, get that into our space, get that into some of the services that we want to give out, right? um, I mean, I don't know, from a cryptocurrency NFT, I think that's a whole different conversation. But at least this is my thought that yes, it's going to keep changing, right? And things can just, like, for example, what happened with TikTok, right? We were doing TikTok ads, and I mean, for a very far away reason, we can't do TikTok ads for a client anymore, So we don't know what kind of ripple effects are there. We just have to sort of keep building ourselves and learning.
Hopefully the future is bright for digital marketing, because there's so many things happening, as you said. There's no way to
Yeah,
even
yeah.
predict this. I'm pretty sure we'll be having another conversation, hopefully in a couple of months, to kind of really drive the point that, okay, you know what, the whole AR thing from Meta is here, or somebody's opened up a whole new metaverse, and okay, let's dive in and see what we can do. So, but Rajiv,
We can
thank
also have that conversation about the challenges, right? The one which is a much longer one, the 3 hour podcast.
Yes, I think that's a great, hint. We can definitely have a much longer conversation on that as well. But for the time being, Rajiv, thank you so much. This was very, very insightful for a lot of people, budding professionals, or peers, or other agencies, clients also, and hopefully we can help them with the kind of services that Ting has to offer, both from a creative and from a paid media standpoint. And with somebody like you and your experience, I'm sure Ting will go a far way. So thank you so much for your time and great conversation.
Thank you so much, Nadir. Nice speaking with you.
Well, that was Rajiv Sathe, and like any other conversations on paid media, there will always be challenges, but that's the best point, right? Because there is so much more to look forward to in terms of new technology, new platform features, well, and Web 3.0 itself. It's just the beginning. Thank you for tuning in to Black and Yellow, a Ting podcast. If you have any business inquiries, you can reach out to me directly, or you can just log in on www.ting.in and you can just fill up a form and we will reach out to you immediately. Well, until then, thank you so much, and we look forward to host you again in the 5th episode.